Hello everyone, welcome to another perspective. The topic of this episode is a military one, and I am very familiar with that. Before we delve into this topic, I will warn you that this subject deals with death and the application of controlled violence. If you may be affected negatively by death and violence, please do not listen any further. There are resources available locally if you are negatively affected by this episode. The subject we are going to cover in this perspective is one I can speak of with a lot of authority because I have lived it. I'm going to talk about the Canadian Army and specifically the Canadian Infantry. I'd also like to invite comments, criticisms, or suggestions from other infantry soldiers as well. This perspective honors three young men who gave their lives for their country: Corporal Andrew Grennan, Corporal Mike Segi, and Private Chadwick Horn. All three were killed in action on 3 September 2008 in Afghanistan. We will remember them. I was an infantryman with 3 regiments: the North Saskatchewan Regiment, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, and the Royal Winnipeg Rifles. I also served as the Regimental Sergeant Major for the Royal Winnipeg Rifles and the Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders of Canada. Infantry seems to run in this family's blood. My grandfather was infantry in World War I. I was infantry, my brother was infantry, and my son was infantry. I have deployed several times in my 38-year career. I was deployed to the island of Cyprus twice, Croatia in 1993, and Bosnia in 1997. Later in my career, I was fortunate enough to deploy to Fort Polk, Louisiana, and later to Fort Irwin, California, both times to train with the American Army. The Army is not just a gaggle of people dressed in camouflage uniforms running around a battlefield. In fact, the Army is an organization with specialties and subspecialties. One of the primary combat arms is the infantry. The role of the infantry, its primary job on the battlefield, is to close with and destroy the enemy by day or night in all types of weather and terrain. Basically, the infantry are the ones that get up close and personal with the enemy and then kill them if need be. However, we are only talking about an actual war scenario like Afghanistan, Korea, and both world wars. One of the characteristics of the infantry is the flexibility it has. The infantry can be employed in a wide variety of roles, from a high-intensity conflict, that's where everybody's shooting at you, to peacekeeping, to aid to the civil power. High-intensity conflict is all-out war between major powers. At the low end, peacekeeping, as we did in Cyprus, was an infantry task. Aid to the civil power can include aid during natural disasters, floods, fires, ice storms, and virus storms, and support to law enforcement during times of severe civil unrest. Now that you know the role of the infantry and one of its characteristics, let's focus on what makes the infantry the infantry. It's been said that the infantry is the jack of all trades but master of none. It means the infantry, at least in Canada, is a versatile and self-sufficient entity. Many soldiers are qualified to drive vehicles, both wheeled and armored, man command posts, use high explosives, that's a real blast, fire anti-tank weapons, employ machine guns to the greatest possible effect, and many other things. Training an infantry soldier to a level where he or she can operate within a section of 8 soldiers is the aim of the Basic Infantry Qualification, or BIQ for short. This is where the various training centers take the recruit who has passed their basic military qualification and can turn them into soldiers. This training is not for the faint of heart nor the physically unfit. It is incredibly challenging training. There are a lot of inspections of everything: your uniform, your kit, and your weapon. There is a lot of physical fitness training, long marches and runs being just two. The weapons qualifications are a must-pass. I will introduce you to the weapons we use later. Tactics are studied and practiced until it's second nature. Field exercises can vary in length from 24 hours to 5 days in length. Once the recruit graduates BIQ, they are posted to one of 3 regular force infantry regiments, or in the case of the Army Reserves, their home unit. Many soldiers don't stay in the military past their basic engagement, but those that do and choose to make a career of it have an opportunity to advance. You can't be a door kicker forever. After a few years, the knees and the back and the shoulders all tell you to stop. Every BIQ qualified soldier is trained beyond that with a primary combat function, or PCF course. Courses like this may include driver, signaler, recce patrolman, and many others. More advanced courses such as Combat Intelligence Operator course and the Chemical, Biological, Radiation, and Nuclear Defense courses are also available. For those who display characteristics of leadership and meet the criteria, leadership courses are conducted that turn soldiers into leaders of soldiers. They are tough physically and mentally demanding courses, trust me on that. The officers from lieutenant and up take a different career path. They have a more strategic focus, especially at the lieutenant colonel and higher levels. Now I would like to introduce you to some of the weapons I have personally used over the years. Let's start with the primary weapon of the infantry, the rifle. The first one I was issued was the FN-C1A1, a beast that fired the 7.62 NATO cartridge. It weighed 11 pounds, or 5 kilos if you like, with a fully loaded 20-round magazine. It kicked like a mule. In the right hands, it can reach out and touch people, and not gently. I knocked down a target at 375 yards with open sights, and I've seen a dead center 500-meter shot on the rifle range. The second rifle I was issued was the C7 and its variants. The C7 is the Canadian model of the M16 that Colt Firearms produces. It's a flexible weapon that can mount a grenade launcher, infrared sights, and gadgets that help the soldier. It can fire semi-automatic or fully automatic. I've also used the 9mm Sterling submachine gun, a small weapon that fires a 9mm pistol round. Although it's not a weapon you would want to use at long range, it is effective at close range. Rifles are good, but the real killers on the battlefield are the machine guns. The C9 light machine gun, or LMG, is a belt-fed 5.56mm caliber machine gun. It is carried at the section level by 2 of the soldiers, and it really adds to the section's firepower. A step up, or actually several steps, is the C6 general purpose machine gun. It fires the 7.62 NATO round, and it is belt-fed as well. It can be fired in the light roll, kind of like a rifle but not really, or from a tripod in the sustained fire roll. It's a sweet weapon. The M2 machine gun fires a 50 caliber round. That's a ½ inch, and it can really reach out and touch people to deadly effect. This weapon has been used as a sniper weapon on occasion. It's very stable when mounted on a staked-in and sandbag tripod. And any of you who think you're going to pick it up and fire it, forget it. It weighs 128 pounds when it's mounted on its tripod. At the platoon level, the infantry has two anti-armor weapons. The first is the M72 Light Anti-Armor Weapon, or LAW. It's a one-shot disposable rocket that can be used to take out enemy vehicles like trucks and armored personnel carriers and light defenses. Don't fire it at a full up-armored tank. It could be very bad for you. The 84mm Carl Gustav anti-armor weapon has been in service for as long as I was in the Army, and maybe even longer. It fires an 84mm high-explosive anti-tank round, and it will leave a mark. Pistols. The infantry really doesn't use pistols a lot. If you need to draw a pistol, you're in deep shit already. The standard issue pistol is the 9mm Browning High Power. A lot of people run this weapon down as being too old, worn out, etc., and I suppose a lot of them are. I fired a new one a few years ago with almost new magazines. I never had one stoppage, what you civilians would call a jam, firing 50 rounds rapid fire. I'm going to talk about a concept here that may be foreign to a lot of people. It's called embrace the suck. Simply, this means to consciously accept or appreciate something that is extremely unpleasant but unavoidable for forward progress. Let me give you an example. One of the rites of passage, if you will, is the obstacle course. There's one station that requires you to crawl under low barbed wire using only your knees and elbows to maneuver through it. Let's say today it's raining and the mud under the wire is wet and slimy. To pass, you must maneuver through the obstacle. Embrace the suck. Been there, done that, got several t-shirts. The one thing that the infantry needs is good leadership. Good leadership at all levels will make an average infantry company that numbers from 100 to 120 people a much better infantry company. There are 16 commanders in an infantry company itself. The company commander, also known as the boss, is 1. 3 platoon commanders, 9 section commanders, and 3 weapons detachment commanders. There are 10 principles of leadership. Google them if you like, but 2 stick out in my mind. 1 is lead by example. Share the hardships and the deprivations of the people under your command. And the second is know your people and promote their welfare. Take care of them in good times and bad. It's been my privilege to have served under a number of really good leaders. General Mike Day was one. Colonel Bob Ritchie I never served under, but I have a lot of respect for him. There's a few more. I just can't go into it right now. Wayne Ear, now commander of the Canadian Army, is another guy I served with. And the last guy I want to mention is Chief Warrant Officer Brett Perry. He was in Afghanistan, at least 2 tours that I know of. And this guy is the real shit, honestly. So this concludes my very, very short briefing on the infantry. It's something that's dear to my heart. I still maintain contact with people within the military, particularly in the Patricias or the PPCLI, and especially the 2nd Battalion. If you got any questions, don't hesitate to hit me up, and I'd be more than happy to try and answer them. And if I can't answer them, I'll find somebody that will. Just to note, there may be some soundtrack after this because I put some sound in where it should have been. I couldn't figure out how to get rid of it. So just ignore it. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And we'll see you next time. Have a good one and stay safe.